We're live. Welcome again. Now, this is the fifth live stream for the week. I started these on Monday and I kind of made a promise that I said I would try to do a live stream every single day. And here we are, Friday. I started on Monday, so there was one Tuesday and every other day of the week. So it's the fifth one. And I'm actually surprised that these live streams are about an hour long, and I don't have any bullet points. I haven't prepared anything. I mean, there's an article that I'm going to read from my blog, but I haven't even looked at it. So, I'm going to discuss the topic today before we get to the article, and the article is obviously related to the topic. So I'm actually surprised at myself that I've been able to just talk for an hour, blab on, I suppose, about various personal finance topics. But I guess it's just one of those things that comes easier, that's easier because, of the experience and the knowledge that I've acquired throughout the years. My teacher was really life. Yeah, even though I got 2 finance degrees, I've 10 years after getting those degrees, I ended up homeless. So it just showed me that university doesn't really equip you with everything that you need, especially personal finance knowledge. And that's one of the reasons that I started this channel. And my aim is to have enough viewers that some people can call in and we can discuss their personal finance queries, their struggles, and I can offer all of my experiences and knowledge. What I wrote in my book, I applied to consultations, and people who find it useful, can incorporate my experiences into their life and see if they can obtain the same results, which was, when I was homeless, I got out of debt, $40,000 of it. I paid it off and I've saved $50,000. And obviously that amount keeps increasing. So that's what the channel is all about. And, we've been discussing various topics throughout the week. And today I want to talk about inflation because it's something that's obviously a big concern for people. I know, I've felt it definitely when I go to the shop and I see what's going on, how consumer prices have increased. I'm not an economist, but I think like inflation is basically, is everybody has their own kind of definition, but it's basically, as the word states, inflated consumer price index measures the consumer prices, and then obviously with that being inflated, prices are rising. That's pretty much what inflation is. Some people want to get a bit more technical than that, but it really is just prices increasing at the grocery stores, and obviously usually, which is most of the time the cause, is prices increasing at the gas pump. People say, I don't have a car, so inflation isn't going to affect me. Well, just think about it from a consumer perspective. Those goods that you buy need to be delivered to a shop. And if the transportation costs have increased, the logistics, because of gas prices that have gone up, logistic companies are going to pass those costs onto the supermarkets, and supermarkets are going to pass those costs on to us, the consumer. So you're definitely going to feel a difference in consumer price in goods that you buy every single day, in groceries and so forth, if gas prices go up, which they have substantially in the last couple of years. So people have been drastically affected by inflation. And they're wondering how they're going to cope. I see inflation. Well, first of all, inflation is a tax on people. That's one thing that you must understand. It's an absolute, it's a tax on people. And always, as I mentioned, stems from gas prices rising. And that can be a political factor, which I'm not going to get into, but we're talking about in terms of personal finance. That's why I say it's a tax, because along the way, government screwed up, and this is why the gas prices have gone up. So in a way, because our gas prices have gone up and your grocery prices have gone up, you should view that as a tax on you, because that's really what it is. You're being taxed on these prices that have increased. So now that we've established what inflation really is, it's a tax on people. How do you can't really get around taxes. It's just a part of life. Obviously, as a business, it's a bit easier to manage taxes, because you've got your income and then you've got your expenses, and then only the taxable profit or loss, well, the taxable payable amount or the loss. And that's as a business. But as an individual, when you get your pay slip, it's your income, and then it's the deduction immediately of your tax, and then it's your net payment, your net salary, what you're getting. You can't. There's very few expenses that you can deduct as an individual in order to get to your taxable amount. Whereas it's much easier as a business, obviously, because you've got all of these expenses that you incur in running the business and generating profits. So those things you can deduct from your income to eventually get to the tax payable amount. And that's really the big advantage of trading as a business as opposed to trading as an individual. I suppose you could say it like that. There's obviously expenses that you can deduct, whereas that's not the case as an individual, so you're going to pay more tax. And now that we're talking about taxes and all of it, not being able to get away from it, how do you, as an individual, most people watching this, most people in the world have jobs. They don't have businesses, so they're individuals. They're going to incur that tax known as inflation. Very difficult for them to control it, difficult for them to offset it against their income. So what they're finding is, let me say this. I look at inflation the same way as I see interest rate rises. So with interest rate rising, if you've got a mortgage, you're paying now more monthly for the same real estate that you've got because the interest rate has increased. Your loan has now increased because there's more interest that you need to pay. That's the way it is. Obviously, when interest rates go down, then you're paying less every single month. But when interest rates rises, the reason I say interest rates and inflation is the same, because when interest rates rises, you're paying more for the same real estate, the same mortgage. And when inflation rises, you're paying more for the same good, groceries, gadgets, whatever it is. It's the same thing, but you're just paying more because of that tax that's been added onto the amount that you previously paid. So that's why I say I view it the same, but the reason I mention that is because just think about interest rates rising, right? What can you do about it? Except for one of the nice things that happens with interest rates rising is that putting money into a high yield savings account, a savings account that generates interest, becomes more appealing because the interest rates has risen. So what people usually do in these kinds of scenarios when interest rates rise is they take their money out of the stock market, other investments, and they put it into a high yield savings account to take advantage of that increased interest rate, because that has become now more attractive than risking your money on the stock market, where there's no guarantee that you're going to get that 8, 9, 10, 11% return. As opposed to, there are certain accounts I was just looking at now in South Africa, where I'm based, is accounts that are paying. It's usually a fixed deposit account where you have to keep your money in there for a certain period of time, that are paying 11% annually. That's what it works out to over a period of 5 years. That's they're giving you interest on, and if the stock market is averaged 9, 10, 11% annual returns, that's usually before all the fees. But let's just say that's what it is. That's usually what it is. And that's not guaranteed. Whereas this interest rate account is giving you a guaranteed 11% if you put your money into it. So that's why people do that kind of strategy. They take their money out of the stock market and put it into interest rates. But that's interest rates. That's how you kind of cover yourself against rising interest rates, where you put your money into a high yield savings account because interest rates have risen, so you get more money out of it. But now with inflation rising, what do you do there? You've got very little control of what's going on. By the way, everything that I say, this is purely for entertainment purposes. It's not financial investment advice. This is just my take on it. And, we'll see how, if you feel that it's valuable and if it makes any sense, that's information that you could possibly use, completely up to you. But if you feel that it's worthless, then you just discard it. That's the beauty of life. You don't have to listen to somebody. You don't have to follow their advice or what they're saying. So it's completely up to you what you do with what we're talking about today. But if I look at inflation, and let's say I've got debt, I'm debt free, I've got savings, so that's a great position to be in. But that's not the case for most people. Most people are in debt. They're living paycheck to paycheck. The grocery bill has now gone up. I know I went to a supermarket. I mean, this was about probably a year ago. I used to buy these fish fingers, and they were, cheap, ridiculously cheap. It was like maybe $5, $6, if something like that. If I'm a bit off, but not by much. The next day not next day. So this was at the end of, I can't remember, maybe 2021. In 2022, I went to the same shop, same item, the fish fingers, for like $10. I'm thinking 100% increase. That is crazy. That's like way above inflation. How are you guys getting these figures from? I guess they just don't care, and they jacked up the price to 100%. And it was like $10, $11 for these fish fingers. It was crazy. And that's when I saw, and then other items as well. They weren't increased by that much. Some were 20, 30%, but I saw them gradually climb over the following subsequent months. And I definitely felt it. It doesn't matter whether you are making $1,000 a month, $10,000 a month, you don't want to be paying more for the same thing, especially not 100% more. That's crazy. So I completely get where most people are coming from when they're freaking out about what's going on. Interest rates have gone up in the last couple of years. So now people are paying more for their homes, for their apartments, but it's the same place, yet they're paying more. So they already have less money just based off the fact that interest rates have gone up in the last couple of years. And now they've been hit with inflation as well. So it's a serious concern. When most people, and this has definitely happened to me, when I try to sort out my finances, I thought, when I still hadn't learned effective money management and I was really deep in the hole, I thought, if I could just get a salary increase, this would be amazing. My life would completely change. I wouldn't be living paycheck to paycheck anymore. It would just be, everything would be different. It would be wonderful. And I got several increases and higher paying jobs and so forth, yet my financial struggles persisted because I hadn't learned effective money management. When I got more money, the first thing I thought was, let me spend it. And now I've got more money to spend, right? That's what happens when you're a spender. So that's not the solution. And if you haven't conditioned yourself to save, you get more money, you're going to spend it. That's just what it is. I think I've mentioned this in every single live that I've done this week. And because that's what it comes down to. You need to condition yourself to become a saver. And that's really where I'm going with this, with regards to inflation, trying to find a solution. So what I'm saying is, by you getting a salary increase, you think that you're going to be fighting inflation. Let's assume for a second that your salary increase is the same percentage or higher than what inflation is. Let's just assume that. And that happens to you. And you think you're going to be fine. The only reason that you're in this sucky situation, that you're not able to cope because of inflation, is because your salary increase, because you haven't received a salary increase. So you're blaming your boss, you're blaming your coworker, you're blaming everybody because now you're struggling because of inflation and you're not getting a salary increase, and other companies are not really hiring, so you can't get a better paying job. It's everyone else's fault, but not yours. Now, that attitude is not going to help. You need to find a solution. And for me, the solution was to reduce my expenses. That's the one thing that you have complete control over of. So that's something that you can implement today. Whereas, let's say there was an impending promotion or a salary increase for you, and you're just waiting. You don't know when it's going to happen. Could happen next month, could happen in 6 months. Like, you're just waiting and waiting. And that's what I'm trying to say is, it takes time to get that salary increase, to find a better paying job, to increase your turnover if you have a business. That takes time. So the solution isn't to just focus on increasing your salary or your turnover. Focus on what you can control right now, and that is your expenses. Now, you're saying to me, okay, but my expenses have gone up. That's not my fault. And yes, I agree with you. Expenses, prices of goods have gone up. That's what inflation is. But what you can control with regards to your expenses is what you buy, how much you buy it, and when you buy it. Those are the three things that are really within your control. What are you going to buy? When are you going to buy it? How much of it are you going to buy? And during inflation, when interest rates are rising, so we kind of really have the worst of both worlds. We've got the interest rates that have risen, so now we're paying more for mortgages, and we've got inflation, so now we're paying more for groceries as well. So it's like they've hit us from both sides. And for me, the solution is to reduce my expenses. And that's exactly what I did. So what I did exactly is I made a list, what I call a cash flow statement, as opposed to a budget. Budget is forecasts, right? Those are forecasted figures, what you think is happening, as opposed to a cash flow statement, what actually is happening. And the way to know the actual figures is by tracking them with receipts, putting them into an Excel spreadsheet or into an app, whatever it is that you use to track your expenses. And then you can, after a month passes, you can see those actual expenses. You're able to compile a cash flow statement. So I looked at my expenses and I saw, okay, I've got a gym membership. Times are tough. Why don't I just train from home? That way I don't have to pay the membership, and I pay a monthly membership. I don't take out those contracts because that's debt. Contracts are debt. If you got a phone contract, that's debt. I'm anti-debt. All right, we're trying to get you out of debt, not get into more debt. So I had this gym membership that I was paying monthly, and I said, you know what? I can just train from home. Times are tough. It might only be $15, $20, whatever it was at the time that I was paying. But you know what? If I eliminate this expense that I don't want, then I'm going to look for other expenses that I can eliminate or reduce. Because if I keep this $15, $20, I keep incurring it, then I'm going to look for other expenses that I'm also going to keep. And I'm just going to say, well, it's a small amount. It's nothing big. It's nothing to worry about. But there is something to worry about. And this comes back to conditioning yourself to become a saver. And really, in times of inflation, you need to be living the minimalist lifestyle, reducing all expenses that are not essential for survival and only keeping those that are. And that's usually utilities and food, and then obviously rent and mortgage and transportation. But transportation, you can, instead of using a car, your own car, which is probably financed, you can use public transportation. But we'll get to that. Because I know people freak out when I say, get rid of your car, sell it. Oh my God, but my whole identity is tied to it. How can I? Okay, well, keep it and then just keep sinking deeper and deeper financially. So back to the gym membership. Now, this is what I did. I got rid of that expense. So that's $15, $20 that I've saved. I looked at my groceries. I was like, oh man, these sausages that I'm buying, those are expensive. This cheese that I'm buying, it's expensive. This meat, that's expensive. I can still have meat, but why not just, for the time being, go for a cheaper alternative? Why not do that just for a while, just until I'm able to get out of, bring my nose back up to the above water so that I'm not sinking anymore. Let me hang out there for a while as opposed to just drowning all the time. Let me see how that feels. Have my head above water and just breathe fresh air. I don't want to feel like my chest is clogged up and I'm stressed and I'm going out of my mind, not knowing how to control my finances. How I'm going to get through the next month when I've got all of the power with me. It's up to me to decide to reduce that expense, to eliminate it. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's not what I want to do, but you know what? For now, I have to do it so that I can be less stressed and I can kind of have a grip on my finances and just, try and fight this thing with everything that I've got. And it's not going to be forever, but if I fight it now for a certain period, then later on, it's going to be wonderful. Life is going to be so much easier, as opposed to not fighting this, not making any kinds of changes. And I'm going to struggle now while inflation is rampant, and I'm going to struggle even later. So I'm just constantly struggling. Let me put an end to it. Needs to stop. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to take out these expenses that I don't want, that I don't need. And I'm only going to keep those ones that I really need. So, gym membership gone, certain groceries gone, going out with friends gone. That's not in the cash flow statement. I've reduced $15, $20 here, $50 there, $30 there. It's now starting to add up. We're now going into a few $100s if you keep doing it like that. Takeouts, forget about it. Subscriptions, not happening. I'm not having those expenses anymore. It's enough. They're suffocating you. They're drowning you. They're giving you headaches. And yet you're keeping them because you want to feel comfortable. You don't want to make a change. But you're blaming the government. You're blaming your boss. And maybe they deserve some blame. Who knows? Who cares? That's not going to help you. Just focus on what you can control so that you can help yourself. Stop worrying about being comfortable when you are struggling. You're struggling. Okay, so go through it. Go make a change so that you come out on the other side and you're more financially prosperous, as opposed to not making any change and then still struggling. And I'm struggling after inflation. I'm just always struggling. I'm sick and tired of it. So I looked at my expenses, got rid of the ones that were that I call non-essentials. Then essentials are obviously, you need water, electricity, you need food, but then obviously not takeouts, not the most expensive meat. Yeah, and obviously you need to pay your rent and mortgage. Those are crucial. Everything else, it's got to go, man. It's got to go. That's what it is. That is one way you are going to have more money at the end of the month, is if you reduce your expenses. It's as simple as that. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to feel great. But you know what? Sacrificing the sacrifice is not going to feel great. But what's going to feel great is that you're going to feel like you finally are in control of your finances. It's like you've got some power. Like, look, oh my goodness, I was able to save, $500. Where did that come from? It's because you reduced those expenses. You made the sacrifice. So you made that change, and you deserve that saving. You deserve it because you made the sacrifice. But you first need to make that sacrifice, and you need to develop that habit. So the way to become conditioned to be a saver is if you develop the habit of being a saver. So once I made this cash flow statement, right? I got rid of all of these expenses that I didn't need. Why do I need a gym membership? I can work out from home, and I don't need to go out with friends anymore. Just for the time being, I'll get back to it eventually. We can call, we can talk to each other, we can meet up, but I'm not going to be going out and spending crazy money with them. So now I've got my new cash flow statement that's devoid of these non-essentials. And I'm sticking to this cash flow statement month after month after month after month. I'm not making changes to it because, you know what, first month I did it. So I kind of need a cheat day, suppose you could say. Let me just go spend a little. I deserve, because I've sacrificed for a month. Oh my God. You've just worked so hard for a month. Why not just go back to your old habits of spending? And then, but everything is so expensive. Did you see that? No, don't go into those expenses. Don't incur them. Stick with this new cash flow statement that you've made. I stuck with it month after month after month. And then it got easier throughout the months because I just became accustomed to it. I got used to that standard of living. And it wasn't bad. It's not like I was starving myself. It's not like I was keeping the heater off in winter just so I could save some money. Nothing ridiculous like that. But making those necessary changes where I had more savings so that, inflation was more than 10%, let's be honest. But now, whether it was 15 or 20%, I'm saving. Now, my expenses are 50, 20% less. So I'm keeping up with inflation, even though my salary hasn't increased. That's how you have a weapon in your arsenal. That's how you fight this inflation. So the biggest problem, when I mention making these drastic changes, people just don't even want to listen to it. Some people actually get offended. They get angry, like, how dare you say that I should make this change? And I'm just telling you what I did. You don't have to. Keep doing things your way. Just carry on doing things your way and see how far it gets you. See if it's going to work out for you. I think you'll find that you're going to keep getting the same results. You can't expect different results if you're just doing the same thing. So change is necessary. And one way, obviously, to change is to reduce your expenses. Now that you've eliminated all these non-essentials, you're going to look at debt. Interest rates have increased, so now your debt has gotten out of control. It's not just groceries. So what are you going to do there? Well, one of the first things, I suppose, it was a blessing in disguise that my car was repossessed because I couldn't make payments on them. So the bank came and repossessed my car. Excuse me. But I still had this debt. Even though they repossessed my car, I still needed to pay off the debt. And that's what I did. I paid off the debt. I didn't want any vehicle finance. So even though I didn't really have a choice in it, I chose to pay off vehicle finance because I didn't want to have it. I don't want to make those payments. And now you've got your car. Let's say you're making payments, you're up to date. What are you going to do? Are you going to keep your fancy little vehicle, which gives you such satisfaction? It inflates your ego and makes you feel good. Are you going to keep it? Or are you going to consider selling it so that you no longer have vehicle finance? You no longer have that debt. And instead of going into debt after that, you're going to save $2,000-$3,000 to buy a second-hand vehicle. Now you own that car. Sure, it's second-hand and might not be as fancy as the one that you took out on finance. But you know what? It's yours. You own it. Nobody could ever come to you and say, you know what, you didn't make payment, we're taking that car from you. It's not going to happen because you paid cash with it. Imagine not having that $300, $400, $500 payment every single month on a car. Imagine you've reduced your expenses by $500 for the groceries and all of these non-essentials. Now you no longer have that vehicle finance payment of $300, $400. So now you're getting to $1,000 that you're going to save every single month. And you're wondering, oh man, inflation is getting out of control. This is so unfair. How am I going to do it? There is something that I did. I didn't have a car. I didn't have those payments after I paid off the vehicle finance, after my car was repossessed. No more of that crazy payment. So that's one route that you could take to reduce debt, because interest rates are rising and now you're paying more on your car, on your house, on everything, and you're wondering what the heck is going on. Well, that's the way to control debt, is to no longer have it. You've got the option to sell your car, and you've got the option to buy a second-hand car with $2,000, $3,000. And yes, there are reliable vehicles for $3,000. There's all the Toyota models that if they were well taken care of and you continue to take good care of them, they're going to run just fine. Those cars are great. They need to be well taken care of, and if The previous owner maintained the car well, you serviced it, you just carry on doing that and it will last you. And remember, you're not going to do this forever. You don't have to now analyze, not go out ever again with your friends, never again have takeouts, never again go to the gym because now you're now hardcore, you're saving every single dollar. That's just for a certain period until you're able to get that higher paying job, until you've paid off more debt so that you've got more savings, until you're completely out of debt, until this and this and this. Sure, that might be a few years. But remember that that time is going to pass anyway. But you've got the decision to make right now whether you're going to make the change that's required so that you get through that period. And after that grueling period, you come out on the other side and you've got no debt. Possibly you've got savings as well. Think about how that is going to feel. But it requires change. As I keep saying, it requires change. And that's the most difficult part. And if you make the change and you stick with it for months and months and years, you are going to condition yourself to become a saver. That level of standard that now you've gone down to, because that's really what it is. You need to go down to a lower level. You can't afford that, like those luxuries anymore. You can't put stuff on credit cards anymore because we're trying to get out of debt. We're trying to lower expenses, remember? So you become used to that level, and it's not like you're suffering. And like I said, you're without heat in winter. No, that's not what I mean. But you've made adjustments. You've made certain changes. And you become accustomed to them. So those are the things that you can do right away. Right away. You don't have to wait until month end. You don't have to wait until inflation goes down, which probably it never will if you really want to know the truth. Prices of groceries are hardly, the chances of them going down are slim, right? So it'll be much easier for you if you become accustomed to the current prices and work to reduce your expenses, as opposed to hoping that groceries will come down their prices. That's hardly going to be the scenario that's going to play out. If anything, they're probably going to increase next year because they just keep putting prices up. So to make a change is going to require sacrifice, but you can do it. You can make that change right away. You can do it today. You can start with your cash flow statement, start compiling it, see your actual expenses, see what you can eliminate, what you can reduce, and obviously only non-essentials. Non-essentials have to go. Essentials stay. Essentials are your key expenses that are required for survival, but you are going to, even look to reduce those expenses, the essentials. Look for cheaper meat. Look for how you can save electricity. Yeah. And once you make that change and you stick with it for a long time and you come out on the other side and you think to yourself, you know what? This actually wasn't that bad. And the sacrifice and everything that I endured, put up with, it was worth it because I fought inflation. You know what? I learned how to save money. I actually got now $500, maybe $1,000 more that I never had before every single month. It feels good. I'm now understand what it's like not to live paycheck to paycheck, even though it's $500. Well, you know what? That's $500 that I didn't have before. How can you have $5,000 in savings when you haven't even been able to save $500? Start with $500. Save it. Let's see. Prove to yourself that you can do $500. Because if you do that, if you save it in the first month and you carry on, in the second month, you've got $1,000. By the end of the year, you've got 6,000, possibly more if you put it into a high yield savings account. Second year, you've got 12,000 more. Isn't that worth trying? Isn't that worth making those sacrifices as opposed to just having these constant headaches, people calling you, creditors calling you, when are you going to pay? You're wondering, you're looking at your budget as opposed to a cash flow statement. You wonder, how are we going to get through this? What's going on? This is completely not our fault. It's out of our hands. What can we do? Well, I told you what I did. And it works. It worked for me. It works for everybody else. It should if you do it properly. But it's up to you whether you do it or not. Let's get into this article, which I wrote. And it's available on finishfirstfinancially.com. That's my blog. Also on the blog is the personal finance book that I wrote, which is From Homeless to Debtless with Savings. Information is in the description below as well. And you can also book consultations if you want to sit down one-on-one with me and discuss your finances. So that's one of the things that you can do on the website. And then obviously you can read the different blogs that I've written about various personal finance topics. So let's get into this article. When did I write this? May last year. Okay, so inflation hurts your pocket whether you have debt or not. That's evident when you go to the grocery store and see the price increases of most items. The gas price has risen, so the delivery costs to the store have increased, and the retailer has passed down the cost to you. Knowing how to prepare during inflation will provide some relief during economic hardship. What is inflation? The common definition of inflation is a general increase in the price levels of goods and services, but I define it as a tax on people because that's what it is. Prices inflate because of excessive government spending, money printing, and bad policies, and you're paying the price for their mistakes. To combat inflation, governments usually increase interest rates. Yeah. That means you pay more for your debt. If you're not in a position to pay off your debt immediately, you'll have to obtain money to service it. Getting a side hustle is one solution, but it can take time. You need an immediate solution. And that is, let's get to it, lower your expenses. You know that you should live below your means even in good times. That's if you are saving in good times and then bad times come, you're going to feel that fall much less than what you would if you were just spending in good times, and then the bad times come and that fall is going to be even harder. So sure, even if you're saving in good times and then bad times come, you're going to feel a little bump. You're going to feel a pinch, no doubt, but it's going to be a lot less painful than if you had been spending during good times. So it's wise to save during good times as well, or the bad times and the good times that will also come as well. So just save all the time, basically, is the motto. But it's essential for you to make lifestyle adjustments during inflation. Consider moving to a more affordable area. This is especially feasible if you work remotely. Otherwise, you can rent out a spare room or move in with someone. That's what I did. I even wrote there, I did it, and I managed to reduce my rent in half. That's what happened. I rented out a room instead of paying for an entire apartment, and that reduced my rental expense by half. That's what I did. It was comfortable being in my own apartment. I didn't have to share the space, but I was paying more, and I wanted to save as much money as possible. So I went and rented a room. I was sharing the kitchen and the lounge and everything else. Sure, it wasn't the ideal situation. I saved money. I made that sacrifice. So if I did it, why can't you? If efficient public transport is available, sell your car. Not having monthly car expenses is likely to save you at least $500. That's the average car payment in America for a used vehicle. For a new one, it's $700. And that excludes all the other expenses that go along with car ownership. Every dollar counts, and you need it during inflation. Forget about eating out, buying new clothes, and going on vacation. It's out of the question. Analyze all your other expenses and come up with solutions to reduce them. You can reduce every expense and eliminate non-essentials, which are unnecessary for survival. Expenses such as alcohol, cigarettes, and entertainment, such as video streaming services and other subscriptions, are non-essentials. So that's the reducing expenses part. Now, if that's still not enough, what else do you do if you haven't received that salary increase? Or if even if you have received a salary increase, but it's not enough to fight inflation. So you need to supplement that shortfall. And what do? Let's get back to the article. Sell your stuff. If you can't get an extra job immediately, you need to sell your stuff. Consider doing that even if you have extra work. You don't need your golf clubs, 5 pairs of shoes, and tools you never use. Walk around your house, garage, and every other area with pen and paper and make a list of all the items you can sell. You don't need your stuff. You need money. Inflation is a major burden on everyone, and you can increase your chances of surviving it by having money. That's what it is. If you want to beat inflation, if you want to stand a chance of getting through the tough period, you need money. So reduce your expenses and sell your stuff. One of the easiest ways to acquire money is to sell the stuff you don't need. Organize a garage sale and advertise your stuff online. It's not necessary to have an additional TV, tablets, and gaming consoles. They need to go because you need money. Don't forget to sell your pets as well. And by the way, I'm being dead serious when I say this. Completely serious. But once again, I actually forgot that line item. Not that I had it when I was compiling my cash flow statement, but a lot of people do have pets. So I forgot to mention it, but I'm glad that it came up in this article because I was living next to a girl who had just moved in next door after getting a divorce. I think she was married for like a very short period, and she found out her husband cheated on her the night before their wedding with a prostitute. So that's a different story altogether. And she moved in next door, and I just noticed that she was struggling. And the weird part was that she rented a 2-bedroom place. I was like, why do you need that? Even if you've got the money, why do you need a 2-bedroom place? And she had a pet. And her car was actually even better than mine, I'm sure it was financed. I don't know, but I do know that she was struggling financially. And I remember her telling me the story where her and I were kind of, we became friends. So we would talk often. And she said to me that I think the pet got ill. She had a dog, nice dog. And the pet got sick. She needed to take it to the vet. And she got there, and I can't remember what she did, whether she asked them to pay it at a later date or she only paid a portion of the bill or whatever it was, but she wasn't able to pay the full amount. I remember that. And just think about that, right? Think about her situation. She's got this pet. Okay, she's alone. I get it. She needs company, but then find friends. I mean, she had me as a friend. She could chat to me as opposed to and I was for free. I sometimes probably gave her even good advice, whereas the dog just consumed her money. That was an expense. The dog, I guess, added some value to her life, sure, but at that stage of her life when she was alone, she had one income. She no longer had a husband to supplement the shortfall of all these expenses that she had. She couldn't afford that dog. She couldn't afford it, yet she kept that dog. She held on to it. And just think about how crazy that situation is. When your dog gets sick, you can't fund certain medical expenses. What if she had gotten sick? What if somebody else in her family had gotten sick and she needed to buy medicine? I spoke in a live stream. I can't remember whether it was yesterday or the day before. There was a girl who always, I know that I go, well, she works at the shop where I go to, and she runs out of money by the 20th of the month, let's say as an example, and she gets paid on the 1st. So for those 10 days in the month, she's got no money, and her mother got sick, and she didn't have money to buy medicine for her mother, and thank goodness her boyfriend bailed her out of it. Just think about that. Think about that situation. You know, you've got this pet, and you can't even really look after it because you don't have that money. But it's costing you. You need to buy food for that pet. She was probably grooming the pet as well, taking it somewhere for, to be washed and so forth. And this thing, I mean, that's a significant expense that she doesn't need. And that pet is actually better off in a home that can afford to look after it, he or she, whatever the dog was, I'm not sure. But, but yet she kept this dog. And that's why I say get rid of the pet, because the dog food costs, the grooming and all of it. And then now on top of that, she still had this expense for the vet that she had to pay that she couldn't even pay. So she's just adding more and more expenses on top of the ones that she can't even really afford. So that's why I say get rid of your pet. You know, it's a non-essential, honestly, to be completely frank. You need to save money everywhere, and every dollar counts, which is what I just said. Let me just see something here. Okay. Let's get back to the article. So I said, don't forget to sell your pets as well. That's what it is. Having a pet means buying food, paying for grooming and visits to the vet. Oh, I mean, I honestly didn't even know that this was in the article. I hadn't read it since I wrote it a year ago. So, that's just what's stuck in my mind, the story with the girl next door. So for grooming and visits to the vet, which you cannot afford during tough times. No more debt. You don't get out of a hole by digging it deeper. That means you cannot take out more debt. It's strange how I heard that some people have 2 credit cards. They're using the one credit card to pay off the other. And it's like, that comes back to what I said. You don't get out of a hole by digging it deeper. You need to make that decision to just stop paying stuff on credit, and because it's never going to get any better. The hole just keeps getting deeper and deeper. So you need to stop, and you need to turn over a new page and just say, you know what, I'm going to get out of this hole by reducing my expenses, by selling my stuff and doing all of these things that are actually working and that are necessary. I might not want to do them, but I have to do them. That's how I'm going to get out of this mess. So you should be paying off debt so that you have fewer payments. That's what I was talking about with your car. You sell it, you no longer have this car. You no longer have these monthly payments. When you don't have debt, you have money. Yes, exactly. Trust me, when you get rid of your debt, you'll be surprised as to how much money you can save monthly. It's crazy. I would not recommend financing expenses with a credit card, even if you plan to pay it at month end. Yeah, that's never really works out, especially during inflation and when you're struggling. It might not work out that way, which leaves you with more debt. Don't make the situation worse by owing more money. So you say to yourself, but what's wrong with having a credit card if I'm going to pay it at the end of the month? The problem is debt is guaranteed, so that balance will remain outstanding, but your income is not guaranteed. So what if your income stops? What then? And usually when times are tough, you're going to say, well, look, I can delay this credit card, especially if you're struggling and you're looking for ways to reduce payments. I can just push it out a bit. And then you push it out to 2 months, you push it out the payment to 3 months, and then it just keeps getting worse and worse. And during that time, you're adding more onto the credit card. Not the way to get out of the hole. Don't dig it deeper. You might feel that you're up to your neck in expenses, that a credit card will relieve some of that stress. It won't. If you reduce your expenses and sell your stuff, you'll have more money. That will help you avoid the temptation of credit card purchases. I shouldn't need to tell you that you must pay all your debt except the house as soon as possible. If you must keep your finance car, I would recommend making that the first debt you focus on, even if you have other debt with a lower balance. Used car monthly payments in 2022 were on average $500 in America, and payments for a new car were $700. Not having that monthly payment gives you significant breathing room. And then obviously, if you ideal situation is to increase your income, decrease your expenses. But how do you increase your income? Well, you need to work like crazy, which is the next point. During inflation and while in debt, you should have at least 2 jobs. Ask your full-time employer for overtime and find a weekend job as well. The more income streams you have, the better. Not only do you need more money during inflation, but you need to have a backup income in case you lose one of your income streams. And that usually happens when times are tough and during inflation, because companies want to reduce expenses as much as possible. And that's when you see layoffs. I mean, if you take a look at layoffs that have happened now in the last couple of years, big corporations have laid off literally tens of thousands of workers. And these are highly skilled people. Just think about it. These are engineers. These are software programmers, and architects and all kinds of people that have studied for years, that have been with these companies for many, many years, that have now been laid off. So don't think that because you're in a big company that your job is safe. It might not be. And you need several streams of income, and you need to increase the hours that you're working so that you've got more money, and you need a side job as well. Obviously, that's part of side multiple streams of income. So the more months, when you've got multiple streams of income and then one falls away, sure, you take a knock, but it's again, it comes back to that it's less, the fall is not as painful as what it would have been if you only had one income and you lost that, and now what do you do? Many people lost jobs in big companies in 2022 and the beginning of 2023. It can happen to you, and you don't want to be without any income if one employer decides to let you go. The other advantage of working all the time is that you have little time to spend money. Yeah. So you kind of, you're so busy working that you don't even have time to go out and buy these ridiculous gadgets that you don't even really need. And that's a really good place to be in, when you're struggling financially. Just work, work, work. That's what I did. I was working when I was in debt. I was working Monday to Sunday. I had a full-time writing gig that I was doing for a company. So I just dedicated my time to them Monday to Friday, and I was working from like early morning until night for them. And then I worked Saturday and Sunday freelance writing for other clients. So I was just working and accumulating money, not spending, just paying off the debt. Once I paid off the debt, I carried on, accumulated savings. You want to be distracted so that you're not focused on how you can spend money. So that's pretty much it, for inflation. And I think I've given some really valuable points, something that you could definitely use, consider, see how you feel about it. It's up to you, obviously. No one can force you, but maybe it's time to consider a different perspective. Look at people who are in the same situation, were in the same situation as you, and managed to turn it around. How did they do it? Well, they reduced the expenses. And by reducing the expenses, they had more money to get to pay off debt quicker. And once they paid off the debt, they now had even more money to dedicate to savings. And obviously, they worked like crazy and had several income streams. So that's what's going to be required of you to make that drastic change to fight inflation. And you'll be glad that you did it. I was definitely glad. And it worked out. And I hope it works out for you. So I'm going to bring this live stream to an end. Every Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is where I'm going to be. Hopefully, there'll be more people who are going to join me. I'm positive that that's going to happen if I just persist and carry on. And we'll eventually get to phone calls where people call in and I assist them with their troubles, their financial struggles. And it'll be a Zoom call. So not only will you hear them, but you'll also be able to see them so that you can relate. You're most likely in the same situation, and it makes you feel better knowing that other people are in the same spot and they're figuring out a way to get out of it. And you might be able to copy what they're doing and have good results yourself. So we'll carry on Monday, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check out finishfirstfinancially.com to book a consultation with me to buy my book, From Homeless to Debtless with Savings, or check out other fantastic blogs such as the one that we looked at today. So I'll check you on Monday. Bye-bye.